Yeah, we posted the petition about a week ago, I think now, and we've got just under 1,000 signatures, but we haven't really promoted it that heavily yet. And I think it's probably a good way of enabling people who are supportive of the No to NATO, No to War campaign to actually get their teeth into a campaign to get people to sign the petition. People have to sign the petition online, and there's a very useful tool on the parliamentary website where there is a map of the United Kingdom, and you can just click on the different constituencies, the 650 constituencies around the country, to see how many people have signed the petition in your locality. And most, if you look at the map, most constituencies, well, 2/3 probably, if roughly speaking, of constituencies, at least one or two people have signed the petition. It's penny numbers so far all over the country. But what's encouraging, I think, is that there is buy-in, if you like. It's actually being signed by people from the north, right to the north of Scotland, down to the very tip of Land's End in England. So clearly, it's reaching far and wide, but we need to build up the numbers. The thing about a parliamentary petition is that it can, if we get 10,000 signatures, require the government to give a formal government response to it. I mean, clearly there's not much support, as we know, in the House of Commons for the campaign that we are mounting. But nevertheless, I think it's important to put the government, put parliamentarians on the spot through a petition like this. It's a petition, a parliamentary petition is one they can't really ignore, whereas other types of petitions, they don't have to pay any attention to whatsoever. Now, if we can get to 100,000 signatures, then there's an opportunity to have a debate on the floor of the House of Commons. And again, we know what the outcome is almost certain to be, that they'll reiterate their support for NATO. But that kind of exposes them, I think. But if we can get to that 100,000 figure, it means that then we've got an opportunity for activists on the ground in different constituencies to lobby their members of parliament to say, you need to be attending this debate, you need to be supporting the terms of the debate. Now, what we've asked for in the petition is that Britain serves notice on the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, serves notice that they're going to withdraw from it. You have to give any nation that wants to withdraw from NATO. No, as far as I'm aware, no country has ever withdrawn from NATO since it was established. And you have to give 12 months notice, as I say. So the wording of the petition, and you're quite restricted actually in the number of words, number of characters, in fact, that you can use. I mean, I did actually draw up a more detailed explanation about the background to the petition, why we were putting the petition forward. But then I realised that the characters restricted us very substantially, so we had to massively truncate it. Even the actual wording of the petition itself had to be reduced somewhat. But the wording of the petition, if people haven't seen it already, says the UK was a founding member of NATO, which was established to address a perceived threat from the Soviet Union. But the USSR dissolved in 1991, so NATO's initial reason to exist disappeared. But rather than winding up its operation, NATO nearly doubled the number of member states. And then there's a little bit of more information on there. So we say here, since 1991, NATO, which claims to be a defensive military alliance, has been directly engaged in various offensive military operations. And I believe that the membership of NATO is now endangering UK citizens. And I think that's unanswerable point, frankly, given the war that we're seeing in Ukraine, the way in which NATO countries have been putting more and more weapons into Ukraine to try and sustain the war, to try to prolong it. I mean, the whole purpose of that war, of course, as we know, is a proxy war to try and weaken Russia. And all the ultimate aim, I think, is to weaken Russia sufficiently so that it can be balkanized, because there are rich pickings to be had for Western capitalist corporations. And some of them have been fairly open about this. Actually, if you look into the background as to the rationale for the war, and some of that we discussed at the No to NATO rally in February, on February the 25th in London. So I think this is something, Lauren, that hopefully activists, supporters can get their teeth into. And one of the ways in which I think people could try and raise awareness of the petition is by, if you've got 2 or 3 people in your local area, just organise a street stall in the town centre or whatever, dish out some leaflets, and we can produce those leaflets. I think that we can give information about the petition on those leaflets. Take your smartphone or your laptop with you, and just try and encourage people to, sign up there and then. Obviously, you have to sign you can't sign the petition like a hard copy. There's no point, getting signatures as it well. You get signatures obviously to build up a support base, but in terms of names being entered onto this petition, they have to be done on the parliamentary website. But that can be done very easily. As I say, it can be done, in situ using a smartphone or a laptop. And when you sign the petition, you then get an email from the parliamentary authorities to your email address, and then you have to then click onto that, and then there's a web link that you need to click on to confirm that you are actually signing this petition. And of course, the only people that are eligible to sign the petition are British citizens, essentially. So you've got to basically be resident in the United Kingdom and on the electoral register. And those things are obviously checked when you actually sign the petition, and then you get the email, and you confirm your support for it. As I say, it's been up for about a week without too much promotion of it. We've got just under 1,000 signatures, so I think that's encouraging. Obviously we want to see more than that, but I really think we need to use tonight's meeting to really ramp up the promotion of the petition, and we need to start to promote it as widely as we possibly can in order to make sure we get to that first milestone, which is 10,000 signatures, and then ultimately, get to the 100,000. Hopefully, it's more than that. But I think the more that people hear about it, hopefully, the more people will be willing to sign. I think there is a growing dissatisfaction with the direction of travel that the government and the opposition, the Labour Party, are taking the country. And I think people are increasingly worried about the potential of a third world war, and obviously that could then escalate even into a nuclear holocaust. And there are no signs of any willingness to enter into diplomatic discussions. All the pressure for that is coming from countries outside the West, the so-called West. We see China, I think, the latest to put forward a peace proposal. I think one of the things that we also need to be doing when we are promoting the petition is just kind of make that point that this is a war that's being waged to proxy war that's being waged to weaken Russia, and that there are no voices from any of the Western nations that are calling for peace, that are calling for diplomacy, and all of the pressure for that is coming from outside of the West. It's coming from, as I've said, nations like China. I believe Turkey put forward some peace proposals. All of those have been spurned. So I think really now the ball's in our court, really, in your court, in supporters' court, to really go out and take this petition to the wider general public and get as many signatures as we possibly can to ensure that we actually make a real success of this, and put the government under some pressure to demonstrate that this is not being done in our name. Yes, they might have the media on side, they may have quite a lot of members of the general public on side, but that, I think, in large measure is down to the fact that most people don't know the detail, and therefore getting this petition out there, starting to organise some street stalls in the town centres, starting to organise those kind of informal conversations, also organising some town hall meetings where we can start to get a debate going. And I think when people are made fully aware of the facts about what's been happening, then I think we'll start to see the support for our cause and the support for our petition to actually mushroom.